Good morning and welcome to Zakiya Larry Live. Now, it has been so much going on nationwide that, you don't need me to do an incredibly detailed rundown. But as you know, with Zakiya Larry Live being based in Houston and airing in San Antonio, and then, of course, with incredibly loyal supporters across the country, all eyes have been toward Texas. But also, here's the thing. Within the time of Hurricane Harvey wreaking its damage along the coast of South Texas, as recovery is even beginning, and I actually use that word loosely because people are in very different scenarios, and we'll get to that in a minute. But while all of this is happening, well, wouldn't you have it that Hurricane Irma strikes the Caribbean and is headed toward parts of Florida. And so I know this is a time that a lot of people are feeling not just displaced physically because of the damage to their homes, but I know there's a lot of mental and emotional upheaval. I know that there are some people who've experienced storms, who are still trying to climb out of Harvey, who are watching what's unfolding with Irma and experiencing trauma themselves. And so, as all of this is unfolding, I had to take a step back and say, when is it the time for real life, real talk, real change? And for me, it's every Monday, but also every single day. So a little inside track, a little background. I've been working on crisis response with people based in Dallas and people based in Houston and organizations with influence on Capitol Hill in DC, because I really believe that this is the time when we roll up our sleeves and help our neighbors. And we hear that a lot, but let's go beyond the cliche of helping our neighbors, but also wherever we are with whatever we have, really trying to affect change. So those are some of the things that I've been up to. It's been a lot of sleepless nights, and that is okay with me because, our neighbors, the state of Texas, our country, we're worth it. We are absolutely worth it. So that brings me to what I absolutely want to talk about today on Zakiya Larry Live. I know it's been a lot of shows that really want to talk about healing. And yes, let's do that. Let's please continue to talk about healing, because a lot of these issues can't be overcome with a couple of quick mantras. In the vein of real life, real talk, real change, obviously I'm going to touch on what is happening on the front lines in South Texas. We're going to hear first person's accounts, right, for you to understand, if you are not in the Texas area, what's going on, so that you can hear it from people who are absolutely on the ground. But I'm about real life, real talk, real change. So the real life part is, of course, getting these testimonials so that beyond what the headlines are reporting, what's really happening, what people are really seeing. As a matter of fact, there are stark contrasts, actually, and we'll get to that in a minute. So that's that real life. Now, real talk and real change, we are going to combine that today, because I love having conversations about healing and how to do that. And while I love being able to serve and even minister to people with the gifts that I've been given and the charge that I've been given to help people to elevate either to their next level in their brand or elevate to a new place within themselves, I am very clear that sometimes, a lot of times, all the time, we need to create a community. We need to make sure that we're hearing from different people with different perspectives, and be very clear, very careful when you're looking at ways to heal, when you're looking at things to put inside of your mind and inside of your spirit. You actually understand from where a lot of these mantras come. I've been sharing my personal journey and how I've learned to heal and elevate and overcome. But today's not that day. I have plenty of tools, plenty of things that I'll be sharing to help. But today we are going to have on the show licensed mental health professional, licensed family therapist, Stephanie D. Miller. Stephanie D. Miller is absolutely phenomenal. As a matter of fact, you might remember her from our Broken and Blended Family series, in which she really helped tie together a lot of the issues I wanted to bring to the forefront when it comes to broken, blended families, why it happens, and how people cope. And so, speaking about how people cope, Stephanie is absolutely amazing. She has a way of putting those pieces together and helping us to understand our mental health in very strenuous scenarios. And what's also incredibly compelling is that even though Stephanie is helping people go through the crisis of Harvey and the crisis really of all of the different storms that have been brewing recently, and she also works with families in different types of crises, she's based in Houston, Texas. And so it's so amazing to be able to hear the perspective of a licensed mental health professional who's also boots on the ground. And so we will be hearing from Stephanie D. Miller, an absolute friend of Zakiya Larry Live. And I am just absolutely thrilled and excited to have her here. Now, real life, real talk, real change. That's real talk, real change, right? Here's what I'm also very excited about today. We will be talking to Congressman Al Green. Why is this huge? Because he represents Texas, actually the 9th district. And what that means is a lot of the people that he represents, a lot of the areas that he covers, flooded, completely flooded and devastated. But this man is also at the U.S. Capitol. And if you have done any sort of research or watched your TV at any point, you see that he is really calling the nation's leader and folks in Congress to step up in a lot of different areas. This man does not bite his tongue. And so with that being said, I put on, my big girl clothes and had a conversation with Congressman Al Green because I knew he was going to keep the real talk portion going of real life, real talk, real change. And what's so interesting, Congressman Green shared with me a call to action for America that I was not expecting. I was thinking, whoa, okay, the gauntlet has been dropped. But he's also sharing some things that the government is doing to aid in this recovery. And I gotta say that is not an easy job. This is not an easy role to be in, leading the nation when there is severe distress. And so I'm so excited that we're talking to Congressman Al Green. And as a matter of fact, speaking of leading when in distress, I went ahead and asked him about that because for me, it's not just about a person's title. And you know this, it's about getting to the root of that person and who they are, because often who we are affects how we lead and how we live. And so I was able to ask the congressman some of those questions as well. And so if you are watching on my Facebook page at Zakiya Larry, Zakiya Larry, go to my Facebook page, Zakiya Larry. You can see the broadcast every Monday. But also, if you are listening in Houston, in San Antonio, I want to thank you for spending your time. Now listen, if you have been affected by any of the weather, the hurricanes between Houston, Florida, and the Caribbean, share this show because there are some life-saving tips, life-saving tools that are happening. We're going beyond the feel-good mantras and we're digging deep in there because, guys, we got to save ourselves. We got to put that oxygen mask on ourselves first before assisting others. So today we're putting on that oxygen mask, real life, real talk, real change, and then we're also giving tools that you can use to put the oxygen mask on others. And so I'm incredibly excited about that. And I want to thank you for even tuning in because this is a function of your resilience by pressing forward and still creating your everyday normal. And for many of us, creating a new normal. So congratulations for that. So I'm really looking forward to these conversations with mental health professional Natasha Stewart and Congressman Al Green. And so, regardless of our topic, I am about levity. And gravity. And we will always have that balance. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what else I've been up to and maybe my weekend or so. It depends. It's been so much going on. And I also want to hear what's going on with you. Please drop your comments if you're watching on Facebook. Drop your comments. What have you been up to? Because there's been so much going on. People have been so busy. And it's time for a check-in. So let's see what's going on. So I'm still going to do my favorite segment. You know what it is. Wait, what? It's time for Wait, What? Because listen. No matter what's going on around us, we still have to find time to find the little funny things in our day, in our week. So I think I have a couple, actually. And like with most things, it didn't start out funny, but I think it's pretty hilarious. So if you are watching, you may see that I have these glasses on, and it's reflecting light, and it's doing all these kind of crazy things. And the thing is, I have been wearing glasses, correction, I have been visibly impaired almost my entire life. I mean, not even kidding. I was a kid in maybe first grade wearing glasses, and oh my gosh, I thought I was a fashionista. I want to say it was still first grade, that I had some glasses, much like the ones I'm wearing now, plastic framed, the just sort of rounded cut with a straight line at the top. The thing is, in the first grade, mine were super plastic and super fire engine red. And my mother just did not want me to get those glasses. And she was saying, what are you doing? I mean, these glasses don't match anything. They're never going to go with anything. And like most moms, she was right. Those glasses didn't match anything. But you could not tell me that I was not fly in those glasses. So anyway, this is just random because this is not my wait what. But I wanted to tell you that I am wearing glasses, and I'll be wearing glasses for another month or so because, y'all, you are not going to believe this. I have a hole in my cornea on my left eye. Like, wait, what? Like, is that even possible? How does that even happen? I was telling one of my friends, like, yeah, I got a hole in my cornea. Yeah, if it spread, I was going to go blind. So anyway, how are you? So what had happened was, doing too much and sleeping in my contacts. And not just one night, not just 2 nights. I'm not even going to tell you how long I had been sleeping in my contacts. I'm going to blame it on HIPAA. I'm going to be like, that's my medical business. I'm not telling you. The real reason is I slept in them for so long that it is so embarrassing and so incredibly trifling that I just refuse to even acknowledge it. Like, I'm just not even going to talk about it. At the end of the day, just know there's a hole in my cornea on my left eye. So I felt like a grain of sand was in my eye when I was wearing my contacts a little while ago. So I took my contacts out, checked it, nothing. So I started looking in my eye because I'm thinking there has to be at least 2 eyelashes in my eye. That's what it felt like. Didn't find anything whatsoever. And so I got really close up to the mirror and I saw a little white dot on the brown part of my eye. And I was like, wow, that's not cool. And the nerd in me went to what? Google, because that's what we do. We WebMD ourselves, right? So I checked out, what could this white dot mean? One thing led to another. I found out about ulcers, found out that it was incredibly emergent. So I rushed from ophthalmologist to ophthalmologist that very same day until somebody could see me. And it was so interesting because one of the front desk receptionists said, I am so glad you came in because I only have an opening on Friday, but you need to get that looked at right now, today. So she was like, just keep going around. And if you can't find anything else, come back on Friday. But I do not suggest that you do that. So anyway, got it checked out. There is literally a hole in my eye. And so I'm using different eye drops, different prescriptions, and I am out of contacts for a month. But my wait, it's not even really funny, but the wait what is like, wow, you can have a hole in your cornea from like not stabbing yourself or anything. It's so random, so random. And so, yeah, that's what's going on here. So really the life lesson in this for me is that, and this happened during a lot of the issues response, is that a lot of times we really want to pay attention to what's going on. We want to help our friends and we want to help our families. And we think we're just taking little allowances for ourselves. Like, oh, not eating that, it won't matter. Or I'll skip my medicine for a couple of days until I make it to the pharmacy. I got to help this person. And those little things add up. Each night that I decided that I stayed up so late working on something else for someone else, I'm just going to sleep in my contacts. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll try it again tomorrow. I'll try it again tomorrow can lead to something detrimental. So every time we miss that piece of our self-care, we end up damaging ourselves. And so that's a lesson that I learned the hard way. And so let's not take away from ourselves, even in bite-sized pieces, because those add up. So whatever, wait, what? I have a hole in my eye. What? I don't, that's so odd. So anyway, right after this break, you are going to hear from Congressman Al Green, and then you will hear from licensed family therapist Stephanie D. Miller. So couple things to do, not just stay tuned, but leave your wait what in the comments below if you happen to be watching on Facebook at Zakiya Larry Live. And also make sure you're taking notes and sharing this show with people that have been through different types of trauma, who've survived Harvey, who are going through Irma. Make sure to share this show. And yeah, I cannot wait for our next guest, which I said the Congressman, and then we will hear from a licensed family therapist. Let's heal and elevate together right here on Zakiya Larry Live. Good morning. You are listening to Zakiya Larry Live. Now, remember, I have promised you that we are going to be talking to leadership on the front lines of Hurricane Harvey and who are helping people to recover. And as a matter of fact, I am so pleased and honored to have on the line with us Congressman Al Green. Now, you know the name. He is part of the 9th Congressional District of Texas, obviously in the U.S. House of Representatives. And so let's just jump in here with our leader, because he is on the ground representing us and ripping and running, making sure that we are on the front lines of keeping Texas and Houston on the nation's consciousness. So good morning, Representative Green. How are you?
Good morning. I am better than I deserve. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be on your program, and I'm also grateful for the opportunity to have an additional day to try to get things right here in Houston and indeed across our country. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for that. So to your point about having another day to get things right in Houston, sir, I would just love to touch on today efforts when it comes to the Houston area and South Texas recovery. So I know that people are still putting the pieces of their lives back together. We get that from a very micro standpoint. However, what are some efforts that our leadership has taken on to start to help Houston, help the citizens of Houston and South Texas begin to move forward?
Thank you. Good question, because there are efforts being made by the public, neighbors helping neighbors, and that's exceedingly important. This is a time for expressions of friendship and love to manifest themselves as they relate to people who live together in a community. I think that the symbiotic effect of people working together is awesome, and we're seeing that with the donations that are being made, with the boats that people brought in from other states to help persons right here in Houston, because a neighbor is not someone who just happens to live next door to you. If you'll recall from Scripture, there was a question posed by Jesus, and he asked, who was the neighbor to the person who was beset upon thieves? This person had been helped by a good Samaritan. And the answer was the person who helped the person in times of need, in his time of great need, in fact. So those persons who come across state lines to help us, they are our neighbors, regardless as to where they come from, because they're here to help. So we see that aspect of it. But then the other aspect of it is the federal government. This is what the federal government is supposed to do. In times of great crisis, it's the duty of the federal government to do the heavy lifting, to come in and do all of that that the neighbors can't do, to come in and make sure that people are secure in their homes, that they're secure in their businesses, that they're secure in their lives. This is what the federal government's all about. There are 3 phases to a crisis. You've got the pre-crisis management phase, you've got the crisis management phase, and then you've got the post-crisis management phase. The pre-crisis management phase was very dynamic, and a lot of changes had to be made. Now, specifically to your question, in pre-crisis management, we had the National Guard to come online, first with just a few thousand, thereafter the entirety of the National Guard. The Coast Guard was brought in. Initially, we had a few helicopters, but we saw the magnitude, the scope, the vastness of this problem, and as a result, more helicopters were brought in so that people could be airlifted to safety. We had the Department of Defense to send persons in. We had these vehicles that are high water vehicles that were brought in. We had persons with the Coast Guard and their watercrafts brought in to extricate people and get them to safety. So the government has had a hands-on experience at extricating people who were trapped in their homes, trapped on their roofs, trapped by high water. We passed that not entirely, but for the most part, the pre-management phase of the crisis. Now we then move to the crisis management phase, where you actually have to manage the hurricane and all of the things that are associated with it being in and upon us. We've gone through most of that. But the final phase, which is the one that we're really getting into, which is post-crisis management, is where the government has to fund FEMA, so FEMA will have the money to help people who have lost their jobs as a result. There really is compensation for people who've lost their jobs, to help people who have lost their homes, to rebuild their homes, to help people who have literally lost everything, their personal items. There's money available for this. The federal government has to step in with all of the funding necessary to rebuild people, and in so doing, they rebuild their lives. People will get to some degree of normalcy. But the federal government has a duty to do more than this. Where we have infrastructure problems that have taken place, we've got to repair the infrastructure. We have reservoirs here that were designed for a Houston that had much less concrete, fewer roads. As a result of all the building over the years, the reservoirs are not designed to accommodate all of the water that builds up as a result of water not being absorbed into the ground. So we've got to take on that infrastructure project. We also have other infrastructure projects that have been pending, that have been authorized by Congress, that the Corps of Engineers has a duty to construct and to repair, but we don't fund them properly. We authorize, but we don't appropriate. Authorization says, yes, this is something worthy of appropriations, but then we have to take the next step and appropriate. We have not done this. In Houston, we had a bill that I was honored to sponsor that would have taken care of much of the infrastructure needs related to flooding. Unfortunately, we can't get it funded and haven't gotten it funded. My hope is that we can put that in the relief package that we'll get. To summarize quickly, we have taken care of the needs of people to a limited extent in terms of getting them to safety. Now we have to take care of the needs of long-term recovery, and in that, we have to take care of homes, property, but also of them mentally. There are some people who have been devastated. They have just, when I talk to people, and I've been out in the district, when I talk to people in their homes, by the way, that have been flooded, when I talk to them, you can see that they need some counseling. A good many people will need counseling because I was with a lady yesterday who told me she went to sleep one night and she woke up the next morning, and when she decided to step out of her sleeping quarters or sleeping area, water was up to her knees. That was a shock. And for her to have to negotiate that and to understand that the water was rising and she had to get out, all of that takes a toll on a person mentally. So there will be a need for counseling. We've got to have money so that people can get some counseling because they've been devastated and shocked. Have we done enough? Absolutely not. But are we going to try to do more? My desire is that we do so by funding immediate needs and long-term needs. We're talking about currently some money for short-term that's going to be roughly a little bit under $8 billion. But long-term, we're talking about over $100 billion, and Congress has to step up and fund the needs long term.
That's understandable. And Representative Green, I say all the time that it takes a long time to turn a ship. And so I know people are focused on their immediate needs, and you touched on some very immediate recovery efforts. What can be expected, if anyone can even estimate, how long it will take to turn this ship to even get to working on that infrastructure? Because that's a brilliant point. It's the infrastructure that needs attention as well. Can anyone even know what that timeline might look like when we look at long-term recovery for the Houston area?
I think that we have to look at other circumstances and do some sort of comparison. I was in Louisiana after Katrina. I was in the lower Ninth Ward. I saw what happened to the levees. I saw the devastation that people had visited upon them, and I have some sense of what it takes to restore normalcy or some degree of normalcy. It took over $100 billion to do it there, and it will take over $100 billion here because we have many more people and a greater land mass. We can do this, and the timeline could easily be a decade or more to get it all done, a decade or more. But to get to a point where we are experiencing some degree of normalcy, having people back in the homes that they were in prior to the flood, just getting them back in to their homes, meaning you've taken out all of the sheetrock that has been visited with water. You take out all of the flooring that has to be replaced, and you'll get them back in. That could easily take months, if not years, for all of the people in Houston when you've got 600 square miles and you've got about 6 million people in the Houston area. So you have to understand that what we're doing is dynamic, and you have to be able to, even with an emergency, understand that a greater emergency can surface. And in the course of going through this, it is not unusual for us to be working on one problem and then a greater problem surfaces, and we have to then take on both of these challenges with the understanding that the one that is most urgent, that is the one that we have to give the most attention.
Congressman Al Green, thank you so much for your time this morning, for sharing what you surveyed in Houston and even your why when it comes to leadership across the board and in a crisis. We appreciate you here at Zakiya Larry Live, and we hope that as you continue to lead, that you know you have supporters right here in Houston at Zakiya Larry Live. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Let's talk to Stephanie D. Miller, licensed family therapist. Stephanie's going to talk to us about resilience, how to survive and thrive mentally in a crisis, even if everything is falling apart around you. And what I really love is I really want to dig into some things we can do to help children as well who are in these situations and we don't quite know how they're impacted. So if you have experienced firsthand or secondhand impact from Harvey, from the South Texas area, you definitely want to stay tuned and definitely grab these tools. And I just am so grateful and excited. Let's get ready to talk to licensed family therapist Stephanie D. Miller.
Hey there. So at Zakiya Larry Live, I am such a stickler for not just multiple perspectives, but real tools that help people. And so, as I promised, I have with us in the building with Zakiya Larry Live, licensed family therapist Stephanie D. Miller. And Stephanie is obviously a family member of the show, and you all remember her, I'm sure, from our Broken and Blended Family series. And so, Stephanie, I'm so excited to have you here, especially during this time of crises. We need to understand how to process these things from a mental health perspective.
Oh, we certainly do. Not only just adults, but I'm telling you, the children and teens as well, and especially with not only having Harvey in the Houston area, but then having Irma to come
Right.
up and just go from Florida up through the states. This is a bit much, and it hasn't been that long, has it?
Not at all. Not at all. Stephanie, so this leads me to my first question. There are people, and I've seen some people react to this, I've heard this with my own ears, that people now shudder at seeing or hearing rain. These are people who are in the South Texas area, and now the even thought of rain bothers them. Have you heard or seen any sort of reactions to what people may think are normal, but other people are kind of receiving as triggers?
Well, it is. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, I have. I've seen it in my office. I've seen it out in the malls and in stores. And there is something called acute distress disorder and stress disorder. I'm sorry. And it comes from an event like this storm. For some people, I'm telling you, the stress is real. It could be the sound of rain. For some, it could even be just the thought of a rainstorm coming, because stress really affects us in many ways. We people are multidimensional, so it affects not only our body, but our thoughts, our mind, and our spirit. And some people are not as resilient or capable of handling the stress of a natural disaster like this than others are.
It's interesting that you said some people are not as capable as others, because there's no way to really know your threshold for handling this until you've been in it. And so what are some tips that you have for people who have been on the ground and have experienced trauma from a mental health perspective? Do they seek counseling? And even beyond that, what are some things they can do every single day to sort of recalibrate themselves?
Wow, that is a heavy, heavy question. And let's see. First of all, let's just approach it from those helpers, the first responders, and some of the recovery workers, because there is something, that is very real, and it's called secondhand trauma, because there's in the trenches. They're helping people. They're in the moment. They don't have the opportunity to really process and what's going on. However, we heard stories here in Houston about some of those first responders that didn't even take the time to eat or sleep. And, of course, some of their signs of stress could be rapid heart rates or palpitation, or even maybe when they go home just feeling fear themselves. Or, say, for instance, we didn't get a chance to talk to some of our Houston Texans, but can you imagine how they felt being in another city and then being not able to get to their loved ones and hearing about the fear of flooding and things like that? And for some, it just has been so much, even just being irritable or just hostile. We call it sometimes being real snippy. All of those are signs that, you might need to talk to someone about this. You may need to take care of yourself. We oftentimes think that we're Superman or Superwoman, but we're not. And anyone is capable of breaking if it's not for the grace of God or doing certain things in order to take care of themselves. Talking to someone.
And you know what? Let's get into those tips in just a moment. You just pulled back the layer on something that I was talking about and have been illuminating on this show about the secondhand trauma. And what's so interesting is of course, the show Zakiya Larry Live is based in Houston, but I also have dual residency, so to speak, in Dallas. And so I was sharing with people that I was on my way to Houston, bags packed, everything, and turn of events, I decided to stay in Dallas because I was given the warning. And then I spent time preparing my home so that Houston folks could come and seek refuge in my home, and not hearing back from people I was reaching out to, not knowing what was going on with my friends and classmates and sorority sisters, just, on and on, my god kids. And so I was it was hard for me to do any work, get any work done. I didn't sleep, and so it's really interesting that you bring that up, because that's one of the things I wanted to address in today's show, that in the days, weeks, months, years that we are looking at recovery, there have been folks affected on many sides. Of course, the people who were directly impacted, who were right there in the center, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but people who were on the outskirts watching, waiting to hear news about what was going on. What are some things that folks can do who were on those fringes watching and waiting? What are some things they can do to start to overcome the stress that they experienced? Because I'm sure they're thinking, well, I technically wasn't in it, so I'm just being a little too dramatic. I need to get over it.
Well, okay, let me share some personal story. I have a daughter that lives on the East Coast, and, with her job, we're not able to talk all of the time, okay? However, with social media and other means, we communicate frequently. Well, I didn't realize how much it affected her. If I thought, okay, yes, she knows, she grew up here, and of course we will be okay. It's like, if you don't hear from me, everything is okay. However, we received a phone call from her, and she was frantic, and she wanted to know how each and every extended family member was doing. And I went, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot about it because here I am, we're trying to make sure that everyone here is okay. And it wasn't until a final round of phone calls where I gave her the okay that everyone was all right, because by that time the storm had passed through, that she was okay. So that just goes to something, Linda's point, that, we just need to be in contact with our loved ones all the time. We need to have a system to check in, to make sure that everything is okay. We have to know that if people care about us, it's just not right not to talk to them and let them know that we're okay, because we don't know how our story is being carried. And remember, Harvey was big news. So we just need to make sure that we stay in communication, let them know if we're okay, and then again, what if we aren't okay?
Okay, hold that thought, Stephanie, because I want to make sure we get all of this. We're going to go to a quick break. Now, make sure you come back, because Stephanie D. Miller is going to put a bow on this thing. She's going to continue to help us to heal when we are dealing with the mental impact of a crisis. And she's also going to really unpack a lot of the questions that I know have been sort of percolating in your minds. And then she's going to give us tidbits about the babies. When we come back, it's Zakiya Larry Live.
Stephanie, let's talk about some steps for people who were right there in the middle of Harvey, who are still rebuilding. We hear the typical talk to someone, get help. Okay, great. What does that mean, and what else can be done every single day? I'm sure you can't go see a licensed professional every single day, but you're living with that reality daily. What are some things we can do in addition to going to talk to someone? Or is that indeed step one?
Well, whether you talk to someone about your deepest, darkest emotions, you're going to have to talk to someone anyway, just to get some type of help. The first thing for some, before you can even get to them mentally, you have to make sure that they're clothed, that you're being fed, that you have a safe place for yourself, or there are a lot of single parents, men and women, who have small children. So it may be just being able to get to the point where you can be open to receive assistance from other people. And for some people, that is the biggest problem. I mean, we could see that even with some people who were urged to evacuate, especially here in the Houston area. Remember, we had a lot of flooding after the fact, when some of the reservoirs overflowed, and there were some people who would not heed the warning. So that's just being open to take care of yourself and to listen to what other people have to say. But then I would say for me, when people really need to come and see me, well, it's when they get to the point where, say, day-to-day functions are hampered. I can't sleep. I'm crying a lot. And young children, they may not be able to, and most aren't able to really voice what's going on. So, my stomach hurts, or my head hurts. And so, of course, the parent may think, oh, well, what's wrong with my child? And it's just, that's the way that their emotions just really kind of signal that there's a problem. For some people, unfortunately, if they have a history of substance use or abuse, they may start drinking more or smoking. For some people, especially those who don't talk a lot, stress can impact your memory. You become more forgetful, or you worry. So whenever day-to-day functions, going to work, interactions with others, there are two things. You look at those things. If they are lasting for a longer period of time, and number two, the intensity increases and does not lessen over time, then it's time to really go sit down and to talk with other people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when one gets to the point where they go and sit down and talk to other people, what about when they go home? What about Monday through Friday? Are there some exercises that one can do on their own in the in-between time?
Yes. And there's some things that a lot of us probably need to incorporate in our day-to-day life. Of course, we talk about talking with others, but then, for some, it might be exercise. It might just moving their body. It might be dancing. When's the last time that, a lot of friends and family just danced or moved to music? I remember that's one of the things that as a family we love to do. We would listen to music, play dominoes. And my mom, we all don't have rhythm. That's a myth, okay? But she could keep up with her beat to the best that she could. But, honey, she loved to shake it, and we just have fun. Another thing that, I've had to learn myself personally is how to practice mindfulness and to learn to pay attention to the breaths that I take. I didn't realize that yes, there were times when I just didn't, and mindfulness encompasses a lot of areas of our life. Okay, I'll give you an example. Now, in my family, look, I'm telling on myself, we tend to be emotional eaters, okay? Sometimes
that's
it's
big
on
for
the
me
sweet
too,
side.
actually.
Yeah, okay? And sometimes it might be on the sweet side. But if when I practice mindfulness, then I realize sometimes, okay, so why am I eating this whole bag of Twizzlers? What am I really doing? And it might be, oh, you know what? I just need to chew. Okay, so why not just go get a pack of sugar-free gum? It's a lot better for me than all of the sugar, okay? Or for some who have their comfort foods, be it potatoes or something that's cheesy, just being. So mindfulness means in a moment's time or over a short period of time that we go inside and just really kind of ask ourselves, what's going on here? Or, okay, what am I feeling? Wow, my heart is beating quick. What happened right before this? Oh, I see what it was. I heard that, say, for instance, this news report, and it just really upset me. I have a friend, an older friend. You know what I had to tell her? It was real simple. Turn off the TV or change the channel.
It's
I'm
so
telling
interesting because I do that a lot. There are times where I keep my television completely unplugged because I've seen how it starts to affect my mental state. And so that's a really good tip as well. Stephanie, let's shift back to the little bitties really quickly because you gave some incredible insight on how to recognize signs that they're dealing with emotional trauma. Once we see that, how do we have the kind of conversations about what they're thinking or feeling with kids? For you and I, we can say, I experienced this storm, I'm traumatized, but how do you even broach that subject with a child?
Well, first of all, it's individual. You need to know that child and know where they are. I'll tell you, I did have personally someone, well, what can I say? There was someone, sometimes we get rumors. Okay, we'll just say lies, okay? And there is a relative of mine who has a father who is not, say really in the child's life all the time. So when, the network goes out, have you seen, how are they? Then here comes this horrible message, oh, he died in his home. He couldn't get out. Okay, so here we are. There's a period of grief, and so I'm saying, okay, so how do we handle it with this small child? Well, we know that this child has faced death before, and part of our faith tradition, if people aren't here with us, they're in heaven. But the thing is, I said, no, but we can't say anything. Well, at the point, we thought it was true, but we're saying, no, we have to wait for a period of time because, listen to this, I did not want this child to equate storms with death. You understand what I'm saying? Because for the rest of that child's life, then every time the rain would come, you never know. He may think, wow, what's going to happen? Who's going to die next?
Right.
So remember, I told you I lived close to an area that floods a lot. So after time went by, look, and the sun was shining, okay? Remember that, okay? The sun was shining, okay? The television set is not locked and loaded on, just news venture after news venture. Okay, we made sure that the child was watching the cartoons and those things. The sun is shining. Let's go for a drive. And so as we went for a drive, and he saw all of the things laid out, okay, then I was able to answer questions and to say, well, remember when you saw these people, the water just flooded. And look, and at that point in time when I took him out, he saw the people out helping one another. So I was able to reframe that into, oh, yes, bad things often happen, but look, this is what happens as a result of. So, of course, it's going to take a while. So part of my follow-up will be to continue talking with the child about it, but then also make sure that we take another drive, you understand, during the rebuilding phase, okay, during the rebuilding phase. You got it? You see what I'm saying? Go straight through. So as tomorrow here in Houston, we're going to have a lot of children, all ages, some of which are still virtually homeless, okay, because of this flood. So it'll take those of us to talk to our children to see how they can be a help and a support. And you know what? Children often do that naturally.
Stephanie D. Miller, thank you so much for joining us on Zakiya Larry Live, offering personal perspective, professional perspective, ins and outs. I mean, this was so awesome, Stephanie. And I know recovery doesn't happen in a day. So over the coming weeks, Stephanie, we want to check back in with you and continue to do a pulse check on our family here at Zakiya Larry Live. Is that good?
That is yes.
Yay, we're so excited. Thank you for that. So, guys, you heard it here first. We're going to have these check-ins to keep our mental health stable. And if we are struggling, use all of these tips from today to help elevate that. So you have been listening to licensed family therapist Stephanie D. Miller.
Let's continue to do Mondays differently. I will see you next week. It's Zakiya Larry Live.
Zakiya Larry Live.